Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tin Man's Cool Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my third and final Midnight Terrors video for you guys. This one is titled Five True Creepy Stranger Horror Stories. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. Okay, here we go.
When I was 16, I thought I was invincible. I wasn't the kind of girl who got easily scared, and I definitely didn't think of myself as someone guys would hit on. I was always the mom friend in my group, the one who looked out for my friends when they drank, shut down creeps, and made sure everyone got home safe.
And there ain't nothing wrong with that. I'll probably act the same way too if I was hanging out with guys, just to make sure they didn't get too drunk at a party or don't get caught into a fight down taken to court.
Maybe it was because my friends were way too nice, or maybe I just liked feeling in control. Either way, I never thought I'd end up in a situation where I was the one who needed to get away. It was a normal night after school, and like always, I didn't want to deal with the overcrowded buses. My trick was to walk a few stops away from my school so I could catch an emptier one and actually have a seat. That night, I was waiting alone at a stop when this older guy, probably late 40s or early 50s, came up to me. He had a friendly smile, so I didn't think much of it when he started talking. It quickly became clear that he only spoke Turkish, but with a mix of gestures and broken Bulgarian, I figured out he was asking for directions. I explained as best as I could, expecting him to thank me and go on his way. Instead, he sat way too close to me and kept trying to talk. At first, I just smiled and nodded, hoping he'd get bored. Then, out of nowhere, he asked for my phone number. That's when I realized something was off. I tried to brush it off, telling him I didn't have a phone, which, let's be real, was a terrible lie. When he wouldn't let it go, I panicked and gave him a fake number, praying he wouldn't actually call it. But of course, he did. My stomach dropped when he showed me his screen and asked why my phone wasn't ringing. Luckily, I had my old Motorola in my bag. It was dead, but I pulled it out and pretended that was my phone. He looked like he wanted to argue, but right then, my bus pulled up, and I jumped on like my life depended on it. I sat right behind the driver, thinking I was safe. But after a few minutes, I got this awful feeling, like someone was watching me. I glanced at the big mirror inside the bus, and sure enough, there he was, sitting in the back. I told myself it was just a coincidence, but at every stop, he stayed on. My gut was screaming at me, so I decided to get off early at the mall, thinking I could lose him inside. The mall was nearly empty since it was late, which made everything feel 10 times creepier. I knew asking security for help was useless. They were just old guys pacing around, not exactly the jump into action type.
Man, everything is not going in her favor. First, the guy ended up calling that fake number right then and there, and she had to explain that phone was dead just to make him believe that. But then he has to get on the same bus with her. No, he ain't done with her yet. He's following her. That was a good idea to stop in the mall because it's supposedly a lot of people there, and then you can blend in easily, hopefully, if that guy don't spot you out of a random crowd. But it's terrible that the security guards are older fellas. I said, well, dadgummit. She said they wouldn't be able to spring into action. I hope she finds a way to get away from this dude.
But then I remembered something. The mall had these unmarked back corridors behind the stores, meant for employees, and they were crazy easy to get lost in. Lucky for me, I had spent the last week wandering through them like I was in some kind of secret agent movie. So, I made a plan. First, I went into an H&M to test if he was really following me. He didn't even try to be subtle, just stood outside, staring. My heart was racing, but I played it cool, walked out, and casually made my way to the hidden hallway entrance. The second I was inside, I ran full speed through the maze of white corridors until I reached the back stairwell. I burst through the exit and didn't stop running for 2 bus stops before finally looking back. He was gone. I had actually lost him. At the time, I felt like a total badass, like I had just pulled off the ultimate spy escape.
I would too. I'm just glad you were able to lose him in that mall.
But looking back now, all I can think is how stupid I was. If something like that happened today, I'd be way more scared and a whole lot smarter about handling it.
Yeah, I know. You should have went to somebody and let them know what's going on, but if you can't find nobody to help you, you might as well fend for yourself. But she did the right thing in getting out when she can of that mall, because I know that she didn't want him figuring out where her next bus stop was, and where she lived. All right, let's get to the next story.
When I was 13, my family lived in a pretty rough area. Crime was high. People got robbed all the time, and even my own brother had been jumped before. My dad was a truck driver, so most nights it was just me, my mom, and my brother at home. My mom was obsessed with crime shows, especially the ones on the ID channel.
Hey, I am too, sort of. I like Forensic Files mostly because they actually show you the process on how they determine whose DNA they got on clothes, vehicles, etc. It just draws you in, like even though all the stuff that they find is bad, I'm still glad that they're able to catch people on them shows. But anyway, let's continue.
And honestly, considering the kind of place we lived in, that obsession probably saved our lives. See, the year before this happened, we were already dealing with some weird stuff. My mom's ex-best friend had broken into our house multiple times. One time, they left the front door wide open, and another time, my mom swore she heard the back door close as she opened the laundry room door. It was enough to freak us out, so we changed all the locks and started taking security seriously. We locked up tight every night, and even got a home alarm system. But in the end, none of that stopped what happened next. It was late, around 1 a.m., and as usual, I was still awake, stuck in my never-ending battle with insomnia. My brother had fallen asleep in the living room, and my mom was in her bedroom. Everything was quiet. Then, out of nowhere, the doorbell rang. But it wasn't a normal ring. It was frantic, like whoever was outside was desperate. I barely had time to process it before my mom, being a super light sleeper, was already up and heading to the front door. She peeked through the peephole, standing on her tiptoes because she's only 5 feet tall, and I came out of my room just in time to see her hesitate. She wasn't opening the door. Instead, she started talking through it. The man outside said his car had broken down, and he needed to use our phone. Now, that might have sounded believable if it weren't for the way he was talking. Something about it was off. My mom, thinking fast, told him, "I'm sorry, I don't have a phone," which of course was a lie. She literally had her phone in her hand as she said it. That's when things got really scary. The guy suddenly got frustrated. He tried to open the door and, when he realized it was locked, started banging on it, yelling angrily. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just some stranded driver. This guy was trying to get in.
Yeah, if somebody says, can they use your phone because their car broke down? I mean, yeah, you feel bad and you feel like you want to let them in, right? Well, if you tell them you don't have a phone and they start getting aggressive with the door, oh yeah, that's a red flag right there. You know that they are evil people planning on breaking into the house, and you need to call the cops to get them over there quick.
I ran straight to my brother, shaking him awake and whispering for him to be quiet. We both rushed to the bathroom, locking ourselves in. A few moments later, my mom joined us, and we just sat there, huddled together, holding on to each other as she called 911. Every second felt like an hour. I kept my brother calm while my mom spoke to the operator, and we all just listened for the sound of someone breaking in, for footsteps, for anything. Finally, my mom whispered that the cops were outside. She stayed quiet until she knew it was them knocking, then got up and answered the door. I stayed in the bathroom with my brother, too shaken up to move. When she came back, she told us it was over, but I still couldn't stop shaking. I grabbed her phone and called my dad, but the second he answered, I just broke down crying. I couldn't even talk. I ended up passing the phone to my mom, who explained everything. A little while later, the cops came back with an update. They had found the guy my mom described a few streets over. He wasn't stranded. He didn't even have a car. He was just standing there, playing on his phone, like nothing happened. The cops believed he was planning to break in and rob us, or worse. To this day, I don't even want to think about what worse could have been. Looking back, I'm beyond grateful my mom was smart enough to trust her instincts. She always loved watching crime shows, and that night, it might have saved our lives. If she had opened that door, who knows what would have happened.
Thank God her mom picked up something from them crime shows because, like she said, it saved her life. And if she just went ahead and opened up the door, that guy probably would have killed her right then and killed the son and daughter. Robbed the place and get out of there. Thank God the cops found him because he don't need to be on the street.
Back in high school, around 2011, I was really into PC gaming. Specifically, I had gotten into this MMORPG, though I wasn't some hardcore player or anything. I mostly played solo, running quests and minding my own business. I wasn't in it to make friends, so I only joined parties when absolutely necessary. For months, my experience was pretty uneventful. Log in, play for a bit, log out. Nothing unusual. That changed when I met a player we'll call Andrew. I was just hanging around in a public area of the game when he approached me. He was friendly, chatty, and overall seemed like a decent person. He even offered to help me with a quest, which I appreciated since I was still figuring things out. At some point, he randomly asked if I was actually a girl. My character was female, but my username wasn't anything that would give away my gender. I told him, yeah, I was, and he just said cool and moved on. It didn't seem weird at the time, so I didn't think much of it. We finished our quest, added each other as friends, and I logged off, thinking that was that. A few days later, I was playing again, and ended up in a different group that invited me to join their guild. I'd never been in a guild before, so I was pretty excited and immediately accepted. It was small and not particularly special, but I didn't care. I was just happy to be included. The next time I logged in, Andrew was online, and he immediately noticed my new guild tag. And he wasn't happy about it. He started messaging me, saying I shouldn't just join random guilds, and that I needed to leave immediately.
What in the world is this guy's problem? Now, I've seen some people's gameplay footage on YouTube. It pops up every now and then. I just click on it. And sometimes there are guys that play as girls. And the fact that he just asked her if she was a female, that's red flag number one. And number two, he sees that she joined a guild and he automatically gets mad at that. I wouldn't be friends with him on either Facebook or any other platform. He's one of those crazy internet stalkers. At this point, I'll be writing down his gaming user ID and report him because he's acting too strange right now.
He wanted me to join his guild instead. I felt bad, like I'd somehow done something wrong, so I left my new guild and joined his. At first, I figured maybe he just wanted to help me out. After all, his guild was one of the highest ranked in the game. Then things got weird. The next time I logged in, Andrew greeted me in chat, but instead of using my username, he used my real full name. I just sat there, staring at the screen, completely frozen. My username had nothing to do with my real name. I had never told him anything personal about myself. I wasn't active in any game forums, I hadn't joined any game-related Facebook groups, and I didn't even have the game linked to my social media.
Oh, don't tell me he was able to do some computer hacking and figure out her name. At this point, I'd be like asking him, how in the world does he know my real name? And also, if he threatens me in any way, I'm calling the cops. Because that wouldn't fly with me. That's what she needs to do. She should have stayed with that other guild and not join his.
There was no way he should have known who I was. But somehow, he did. Before I could even process that, his messages started getting unsettling. He told me he couldn't stand not knowing what it felt like to touch my skin. He sent multiple messages describing how he imagined I must feel and smell. I felt sick. My hands were shaking as I logged off. At this point, I was freaked out but also curious. How the hell did he find out who I was? So, in a moment of really bad decision-making, I decided to do some digging. I remembered that big guilds sometimes had Facebook groups, so I searched for Andrew's guild and checked the admin list. Sure enough, there was an Andrew listed, and his name was eerily similar to his in-game username. That's when I finally learned his full name. The next time I logged in, I decided to test him. When he greeted me using my real name again, I responded by using his. But he didn't react. He wasn't freaked out or surprised. Instead, he asked me how things were at my school, and he named it. Then he casually mentioned my neighborhood. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I didn't say another word. I just logged off, uninstalled the game, and never looked back. To this day, I have no idea how he got that information. It wasn't public anywhere, and I never gave him a single personal detail. Out of morbid curiosity, I looked him up years later. He's now a professor at a University of Science and Technology. And yeah, that doesn't make me feel any better.
Yeah, that wouldn't make me feel any better either. Knowing that he's a professor of computer technology and he did all this to that girl. I said, one, he's not only a sexual predator because he said something about he wished he could like smell her or whatever. I'm like, oh God, that's just disgusting. And the fact that he figured out where she went to school at and where her house was at, oh man, I would have been reporting him then instead of not doing nothing.
My dad was never exactly father of the year. He wasn't a great person, and honestly, he shouldn't have been a parent at all. Doctors told him in high school that he'd never have kids because of a messed up injury from a car accident. Turns out, they were dead wrong. By the time I was 13, he'd somehow fathered at least 15 kids. I only ever met one of them, my older half-sister. As for the rest, no clue. When I was 10, a guy randomly showed up at our apartment claiming to be my dad's son, one of my long-lost half-siblings. He looked like he was in his late teens or early 20s, said he had just moved from California, and asked if he could crash with us while getting back on his feet. My dad agreed without hesitation. The guy didn't have much with him, just an old laptop, and honestly, he seemed a little rough around the edges.
You shouldn't be judging how your half sibling looks. He might have had a hard life with his stepfather, you never know. But it's kind of crazy that this guy's dad fathered 15 children with different ladies, you know what I'm saying? Man, talk about the child support, I tell you.
He was tall, kind of skinny, had scruffy facial hair, and kept his hair at that awkward in-between length. At first, I actually thought he was pretty cool. My dad told me, "This is your brother. He's family. He'll be taking your room for a while." And that was that. I had to sleep in the living room, which sucked, but I didn't question it. My dad, however, was weirdly protective of my old room. He would never let me go inside. Despite that, I got along with my brother. We bonded over video games, especially Minecraft. We set up a LAN server, built worlds together, and even had a competition to see who could make the coolest redstone contraption. He was also into programming and was working on some Skyrim-like game, showing me all the things he'd coded. For a kid like me, that was mind-blowing. But then, After about a month of him living with us, things took a terrifying turn. The night before he left, we had just started our Minecraft Redstone competition. The plan was to finish our builds and show them off the next day. But that next day never came. At some point in the middle of the night, probably past midnight, I woke up to the sound of screaming. Not just any screaming, my dad's. It was followed by loud banging, like someone slamming against the walls. I was still half asleep, completely disoriented. But then I saw it. My dad was chasing my brother out of the apartment. The guy was running for his life, clutching a knife in his hand. My dad was in full rage mode, yelling at him as he bolted down the street. After a few minutes, my dad came back inside, out of breath, making sure my younger sister and I were okay. He didn't sleep at all that night. He just sat in the living room until sunrise, guarding the apartment like he was expecting the guy to come back. It wasn't until months later that I found out what actually happened that night. Now, this is mostly based on what my dad told me, and he had a habit of exaggerating things, so take it with a grain of salt. But according to him, the guy had snuck into his room while he was sleeping and stabbed him in the chest. My dad woke up immediately. Apparently, his old military training kicked in and fought him off. But the scariest part? He claimed that after stabbing him, the guy turned to my little sister and was about to stab her. That's when my dad completely lost it. He tackled the guy, beat him senseless, and after a nasty struggle, the guy broke free and ran out of the apartment. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I guess the police got involved at some point. My mom told me that when she saw my dad later, he actually did have a stab wound, but it wasn't life-threatening. Since we were dirt poor and couldn't afford a hospital visit, she patched him up herself. She was a nurse, so she knew what she was doing. The cops apparently looked into it and found out that the guy wasn't even my dad's son. He was a complete fraud. Worse, he was wanted in California, Oregon, and Washington for all sorts of crimes. I never found out if he was caught. I don't even remember his real name. But if there's anything to take away from this story, it's this. Don't let random people into your house.
Lesson learned. I mean, that is crazy to think that he fooled you guys with the whole he's your other son story. But I'm glad his father did not get seriously hurt to it being life threatening and got him out of the house, because you never know, that guy probably would have ended up getting away scot-free, killing his dad, and then probably robbing you guys in the process. But the point is, you always got to be on guard with random people, nevertheless. All right, let's get on to the final story.
It was my second year of college, and like any other night, I was bored out of my mind. Instead of sitting around doing nothing at home, I figured I'd go be bored at my friend's apartment instead. It was late, probably close to midnight, but that didn't really matter since we usually stayed up until at least 3 a.m. anyway. The town I lived in was like any typical college town, mostly chill, but with its fair share of sketchy stuff, especially when it came to petty crime. My friend's apartment complex had a reputation for being the spot for parties, which also meant it was a hot spot for theft. So anytime I went there, I made sure to stay alert. When I pulled into the complex and got out of my car, I noticed this guy walking towards me. He was tall, built, and had that kind of presence that immediately made me hyper aware of my surroundings. Instinctively, I looked away and started walking to my friend's door, but then he spoke up. "Hey man, I was wondering if I could get a ride back to my house. I don't have a car, and no one wants to pick me up. I've been asking people, but no one's willing to help. I live pretty far, and it's freezing out here. I really don't want to walk." Now, growing up in the city, I knew better than to give random strangers a ride, especially at night. But for some reason, I hesitated. Something about him seemed normal, just another college student stuck in a crappy situation. And honestly, I felt bad. It really was cold, and I figured if I were in his position, I'd appreciate someone helping me out. So, Against my better judgment, I shrugged and said, "Man, you know white people don't give rides to us," just to lighten the mood and calm myself down. He laughed, I laughed, and before I could rethink my decision, we were both in my car. At first, everything seemed fine. As we drove, he kept thanking me, saying how much he appreciated it. He even apologized for not being able to give me gas money, but I told him not to worry about it. But then, as he started giving me directions, I realized we were heading into one of the rougher parts of town, the kind of area I usually avoided. That's when I started feeling uneasy. About halfway there, he asked if he could use my phone to call someone. He said he needed to check if someone was home to open the door. I handed it to him, and he made a call, but no one picked up. No big deal, right? Then he turned to me and said, "Hey, you should slow down. There might be police around here." I told him I was fine and kept driving normally, but for some reason, he kept insisting. He tried calling again, and when no one answered, he repeated, "Seriously, you should slow down. You don't want to get pulled over." That's when my gut dropped. Why did he care if I got pulled over? Was he trying to avoid the cops? Was he carrying something illegal? Did he have a warrant? A million thoughts started racing through my head. I even considered speeding up just to get pulled over on purpose. Because at this point, I no longer felt like I was just helping out another student. I felt like I had a wanted criminal in my passenger seat. Then another terrifying thought hit me. What if this wasn't just a random ride? What if I was being set up? I'd heard stories before. Someone asks for a ride, and when they get to their destination, a group is waiting to ambush the driver. And the fact that he was using my phone to call someone? Maybe he wasn't actually checking if someone was home. Maybe he was signaling them. By the time we reached his place, I was in full survival mode. My eyes darted around, scanning the area for any movement. Was anyone waiting for me? Was I about to get carjacked, kidnapped, jumped? But then, to my surprise, nothing happened. He just thanked me again, got out, and walked toward his house. No ambush. No one lurking in the shadows. Just him disappearing into the night. I gave him a quick wave, slammed the gas, and got the hell out of there. Looking back, maybe he really was just a regular guy who needed a ride. Maybe he was just paranoid about getting pulled over for his own reasons. But I'll never know for sure. One thing I do know, I'll never give another stranger a ride at night again.
That would be kind of creepy. You pick up a total stranger and then you take him to where he wanted to go, and it was like a rough neighborhood. Oh, yeah, I'd be creeping out. To be like, oh man, just hurry up, get out of the car so I can go. But I think I heard this story before. It might have been on his other channel, Midnight Tales, on one of his older videos, or on Mr. Nightmare's channel. I can't remember because I remember hearing that story in one of them other ones. I would feel bad too if he kept on saying, "I don't have any money to give you for gas." I'll be like, "Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Just doing a good deed, helping you out." I'm just glad he got out of there safely. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Terrors reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.